So today I'm going to be talking to you about from brokenness to beauty. And I'm so glad you're back. And I'm talking out of my experiences a lot because that is how we learn. So the brokenness that you experience cannot be compared to the beauty God has in store for you. And I want to give you hope today. Because you might have been through something that was very devastating in your life, whether it was a loss of a spouse or a child or a very strained relationship with a child, whether it's a preschooler or a teen or a grown child. Either way, it can be very, very hard. You might have health issues that are very difficult to go through, or your spouse may be having, your husband may be having situation like that, or your parents, or caring for your parents as they age. All these things are really, really hard, and we make mistakes in our lives, and sometimes those mistakes are caused by sin. We have regrets, even though I've heard said so many times to live without regret. I live with regret. There's so many things that I wished I could have done different, and yet there's so many things that I'm happy with the way they turned out and the way they are. And so, another thing I didn't mention, you might have gone through or be going through a divorce. Anything is, and even if you are like me, where you stayed married through the years and you hung on, there's still, I don't have a perfect marriage. I still don't. It's much better than it was when I was younger. Not always been perfect, because we're not perfect. So I guess I'm just asking you, has life dealt you blows that left you feeling insecure, inadequate, and incapable? Because that's often what our problems can do to us, because God allows these things. He might not have caused them, might not have had that happen, but He allows them so that He can work in our lives and be victorious in our lives, so that we will grow closer to Him. And too often, I have relied on my own strength. And that's where the whole problem lies. And we start off adulting, and if you were like me, I started off thinking that I could do life better than my parents. I could parent my children better than my children did, and things like that. And there were things that I wish that they had done. Often, I think children wish that their parents could spend more time with them, or that they see them, like, they get, as you get older, a little bit older, you may be tired and you don't do the same things you did with them when they're younger. They forget some of the things we did with them, so that they're like, I don't even remember things we thought that they should have remembered because it was so special. And I just think that the enemy allows these things because it makes us at odds with each other. But I want to help you to turn these things that broke you in your life, that so that the Lord can use them, even though your brokenness has brought you to a really low level, and maybe you're melancholy or dealing with depression because of it, and to help you find some higher ground to live on. I can't guarantee that these things that I'm sharing will get you out of depression or not. That depends on you. Maybe you need a doctor involved. I don't know. But the Lord can help you in so many ways, and this is what I hope to do for you. So first of all, we have to look at brokenness. Brokenness is becoming nothing, or that's what you can allow it to do in your life. You can become so broken that if you don't turn everything over to the Lord, you remain in a place of brokenness your whole life. And I've seen that happen where women don't really start living in victory. Or you can stop striving in yourself, look to the Lord, give your issues and problems and your sorrows and your regrets and disappointments to the Lord. So as long as we keep striving, worrying, and fretting, and strategizing our solutions without allowing God to give direction and strength, it becomes possible for God to turn things around for us, for his good. So that's what it says in Romans 8:28. It says, and we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. So God can turn your brokenness into beauty, but he can't if you don't allow him to and you don't turn it over to God. If you keep striving, it kind of won't happen. So having a prideful heart will set you up for a fall. And so if you fall, you can stay in that place or fall further if you don't involve God in the solution. My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline or be weary of his reproof. That's Proverbs 3:11. And not all brokenness is caused by sin in our hearts. It's not. It's not always because we need a lesson from God. If you look at Job, he didn't need to have a lesson from God. It's just what God allowed in his life. And it's helped so many people because of that. But there's always, always something God wants to teach you through your brokenness. Hang on with me, and we're going to get into this a little bit deeper. So whether you've experienced a marriage on the rocks, or one of your kids is not walking with the Lord, or your life has been shattered by the loss of your husband, whether he's passed away or he left you, or anything else that has challenged your stability in Jesus, this message, the things I'm sharing today, are for you. So you've got this in Jesus, and he will be your security. He is adequate for your situation, and he is capable of holding you up. You can become unstoppable with Jesus directing your steps, because then that's how he can use the problems you're having through this situation, where he can use it so you can help other people down the road. Just like I had a devastating thing that happened in my life, and a couple of devastating things during the same period of 10 years or 15 years, and I can help you because I went through something. If I was just sharing right now that about how to deal with hard things, and I'd never been through something, I wouldn't have compassion. I wouldn't have understanding. And that's why God can turn and make your beauty or your brokenness turn into beauty, and how he can just change everything around in your life for his glory. So brokenness is what happens when we get to the bottom of ourselves. It's where you're at when there's nothing left of you. And that's actually a good place to be. That is where God wants you, because that's where he can start turning things around and working in your life so that you can become a woman for God's glory, and he can start living in and through you in a much more powerful way. So you probably are powerless to climb out of your pit. You might be feeling melancholy or depression so deep. And to me, melancholy is just that blah feeling every day. It's like one step away from depression. Depression is much worse to me, harder to get out of. But yet God is so powerful, so merciful that he can do that in your life. So your experience of ashes can last a decade or 2 decades or even a lifetime unless you allow God to turn it around for his beauty. And there are people that probably climb out of it on their own, but they don't have the same depth of change when God does it. So that I'm not saying that there aren't people out there that say they have all the answers for and therapists that can't help a person to change, because some of the principles that are used in the Bible someone else can use, but you're not going to have the same transformative thing that happens in your heart. So your emotions might be involved in all this, your hormones as well. You might have need of getting some supplements that help you to stabilize your hormones. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Do you deal with melancholy or a spirit of heaviness or depression, which is much deeper than that? do those who love you practically think you're crazy, which is probably not even true. And it's difficult to explain to them what's going on in the inside of you. And they just don't understand. For one thing, most men don't really understand what happens with a woman with her hormones and the emotions that get connected with that, and the eating problems that happen with that. And just some hormones can make you eat, make you want to eat. Others make you don't want to eat. And just depends on what ones are going on in your life. And it can just make things complicated, and it's real. Don't let anybody tell you that your depression is all based on sin. It might be, but it's not necessarily. There are things that you can change and look into to change, like supplements you can take, adaptogen supplements that can help you to stabilize you so that the Lord can start helping you. Because we have things that we're dealing with today in our society that weren't before, because our food sources don't have the same level of nutrition that they used to have, and things like that. So are you held captive by your circumstances? Do your thoughts just get so wrapped up with them that you go round and around and around? I used to do that, where it repeated the same cycle of actions with others and stuff that I just couldn't get out of. You get to into a situation where you're just, it's like sets you up every day and you don't know how to get off. And it's like a merry-go-round, but it's not too merry. Are you all bound up in knots by something? Are you mourning a relationship that you lost, either from death or from the person leaving? Sometimes husbands leave for another woman, and so you feel so terrible and inadequate and unworthy, and then you kick yourself for the things you've done wrong in the relationship and so forth. And so these are just the things that God can heal. If you're dealing with any of these, you aren't alone. You might be struggling with a feeling that you're not enough. I have a whole workbook that helps. I have the workbook that goes with this course that's extremely helpful. It has, I think, the stuff in it from the You Are Not Enough. It has 2 pages in it that are invaluable. They have verses that you can look up for different situations, different things you might be going through, that you can look up, like 4 verses or passages that have to do with this, that, or the other. So you might be struggling with your failure or your perceived failure, or maybe you feel like your family is dysfunctional. I used to know that our family was dysfunctional, and then I thought I was the only one, and actually we weren't. Most families are dysfunctional in some way or another because we're sinful and we're not perfect. And maybe your circumstances have broken you. But there is a way out. Your brokenness is the key, believe it or not. And these verses, I'm going to read to you from Isaiah 61, 1 through 3. I hope will encourage you. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives, and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor, and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, to grant to those who mourn in Zion, to give them the beautiful headdress instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the sad, not mourning, the sad type of mourning, the garment of praise instead of a faint spirit, that they may be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. Okay, how do you turn your ashes into beauty? Okay, my spirit was so heavy that I woke up each morning with what felt like a heavy weight over me. It wasn't that I was neglecting my time with Jesus. You can have problems with melancholy or depression, no matter how faithful you are to the Lord, just something that we deal with on this side of heaven. So are you in a similar spot? So one day after having an extremely devastating string of experiences, it was like 3 months after we found out that some things that were horrible, that the most amazing thing happened. I found a song on YouTube called "My Hope Is in Jesus." You can look it up. It's Ron Hamilton and Ben Everson sing it. And I also started singing "Yesterday, Today, and Forever." Jesus is the same. It's a hymn. I sang it every single day, even though I can't really sing. I was home alone. I didn't realize that something was beginning to happen. I didn't even notice it at first. That's why sometimes it's good to write down your thoughts on what's happening or the pain you're going through, whether it's in your heart or physically, because when you start experiencing healing, you don't even realize it's gone. It's really strange. But so at the beginning, I didn't realize that began to happen. And then I was in such a deep pit that I overlooked that I was being lifted out of that pit. How could I not notice? And the painful experiences began to feel less and less and less. And then one day I realized I had found the inexpressible joy that I'd never experienced before. And I used to cry every day when I was going through those things, and I didn't have any more tears to even cry when I wanted to. And I had lost the spirit of heaviness, and the mourning, the sadness had been turned to joy. I was wearing a garment of praise, and I was growing like a tree of righteousness. There was planting and growth ahead for me, and my life of ashes was turned into beauty. And God was able to use my brokenness and be glorified through my life. And I just want you to emphasize that as you listen in your head. And just start reading the Bible every day. Start praying, crying out to the Lord to help you. I'm going to link a blog post that has much of this content in it. And at the bottom is our a set that has 2 pages for this printable called Promises to Overcome Fearful Thoughts. So if fearful thoughts are part of what you're going through, this will help you because it gives you the verses right there. And sometimes even if we're just in the pit, the fearfulness is and the anxiety is there somehow anyway, and this will help. So also go back and look and do the workbook that comes with this course. It really will help you. And I've put it together because it was things that helped me. So thank you for listening, and we will do the next module next time and start that. So bye.